From WXXI News, this is Connections. I'm Evan Dawson. Our connection this hour was made earlier this week when the Trump administration issued new guidance regarding Tylenol. And then the president himself went on a long, I would call it a rant, about Tylenol, telling women who are pregnant not to take it, saying that it can cause autism. He says women have to learn to tough it out without medication. And then we heard from more of the experts, and it has been a deluge of medical professionals across the country standing up and saying, first of all, we have got to be much more careful when we talk about the evidence. And second of all, what does this do for pregnant women who might be blaming themselves unnecessarily? Third of all, the autism community has come forward to say, why are we even talking about blame as if there's some sort of deep sin or scar to be uncovered here instead of celebrating all people? So it is a wide range of reactions to what the White House issued earlier this week. And we want to have a conversation with people from a number of different sides who can at least talk about their own concerns or experience, and we'll welcome your feedback as we go throughout this hour. Let me welcome in studio first a medical professional. Dr. Stacy Sun is with us, a fellow of the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, an assistant professor at the University of Rochester Medical Center. Doctor, thank you for making time on short notice for us today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Next to Dr. Sun is Tamika Robinson, a parent and an advocate. Welcome. Thank you for making time for us today.
Thank you for having me.
Across the table, welcome a couple. Let me welcome Courtney Dixon and Moran, who are parents and advocates. Welcome to you both. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks, Evan. Appreciate it. Should we all pronounce acetaminophen really quick? Should we just start with that? Should we phonetically put it out there? Just to break that down really quick.
Acetaminophen. I think
Acetaminophen.
Dylan Dailor.
See, we all did it. That was amazing.
Our president had a hard time.
Hey, stuff happens. It's okay.
Let me welcome on the line as well another self-advocate, Dylan Dailor, who is out of town but wanted to join as well. Hey, Dylan, welcome. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, Evan, thanks for having me.
All right, so you want to say acetaminophen too, Dylan? You want to join the party?
Acetaminophen, aceta, whatever works for us all.
Dylan, you nailed it. That was excellent.
So let me start with the medical professional in the room here, and I just want to be very direct about what we're hearing from the White House. So let's start by some of what we've heard from the president himself. We've got two separate clips here. Let's go with the first clip first. This is the president, some of the very specific remarks he made regarding Tylenol.
But there's a very strong recommendation, maybe stronger from me than from the group, because they're waiting for certain studies. I just want to say, it like it is. Don't take Tylenol. Don't take it. If you just can't, it's fight like hell not to take it. There may be a point where you have to, and that you have to work out with yourself. So don't take Tylenol. And there are other things. It's interesting because there are other things, we were talking about it, other different drugs, pills that you take that we know are so bad and they don't take them anymore. But for some reason, with this, they keep taking it. Don't take Tylenol. There's no downside. Don't take it. You'll be uncomfortable. It won't be as easy, maybe. But don't take it. If you're pregnant, don't take Tylenol. And don't give it to the baby after the baby is born.
Okay. Then we've got one more clip. Do we have? Yeah. Let's listen to the other one now, too. This is from the president.
The kind of number that we're hearing, where it's 1 in 32 or 1 in 10, because I've heard 1 in 10 also. And in California, it's really bad. I want it to be, let's get it back to maybe 1 in 10,000 or 1 in 20,000 or maybe none in 20,000. And the only way you're going to do that, because this is artificially induced. This is induced by something. You don't go from 1 in 20,000 to 1 in 10,000, then to 1 in 10. That means you're taking something and something's wrong.
No, it doesn't, actually. It means that you're diagnosing it more and you're understanding it better. But I'm not the medical professional, so let's work backwards there. That last clip, Dr. Sun, was the president, his view that if the rate of diagnosis has increased, then the number of cases must be increasing rapidly and there must be something to blame, and it must be Tylenol. What do you say?
Well, let's back up and clarify that correlation is not causation. And the strongest evidence and a really enormous article, JAMA article, who reviewed nearly 2.5 million kiddos, have shown that Tylenol, acetaminophen, the use of it does not lead to autism in kids. And, it's really important at this time more than ever that we follow our trusted guidelines. And these guidelines are backed by the American Academy of Obstetricians, but also the American Academy of Pediatricians, the Autism Science Foundation as well, and the Society for Maternal Fetal Medicine.
Yeah, and one of the things I was trying to read as fast as I could about the studies that do exist. The president says we need more studies. This has been studied.
It is very well studied.
It's very well studied. And one of the examples was where you see cases of children who have autism and families or parents who administered Tylenol or acetaminophen. Then they studied siblings in the same family.
Correct.
Where Tylenol or acetaminophen was also used. And you don't see elevated rates of, you would think you would see elevated rates throughout the family if Tylenol or acetaminophen is what's causing it. And you don't see it. Correlation is not causation. And so is there something dangerous in what the president is saying? I mean, he's telling pregnant women, don't take it. You're going to be uncomfortable. Tough it out. He kept saying, tough it out.
That's such a... clearly it's purposely aimed to cause fear and confusion for people all around, for pregnant people. And not taking Tylenol, not taking acetaminophen can cause harm. And, fevers and illnesses during pregnancy that are untreated can cause harm. And that's actually well studied as well. So please listen to our best clinical guidelines right now. Listen to your provider, to have a discussion and before jumping to conclusions.
I have to say, listening to the president, when he says, listen, you're going to be uncomfortable, maybe, but you'll be all right. It's like you're flying first class, but the seat's not perfect. You might be a little uncomfortable. Uncomfortable is an interesting word to use for a man who's never been pregnant and who's never experienced what it is like for pregnant women who are probably desperate to do the right thing and now might feel either more judged or limited, right?
It's not our place to blame people. It's not our place. As providers, we certainly don't blame our patients and the people around us. This is not being uncomfortable. This is, having a fever, having serious pain is serious in pregnancy. And if we don't treat it, there could be underlying issues that come out.
Okay, so let me turn to the rest of the panel. And, Dylan Dailor, when we've talked in the past about your own self-advocacy as someone with autism, you are someone who's, I know, thought very deeply about your own life. I don't know how much you've thought about it. I mean, did the Tylenol thing come out of nowhere for you, or have you heard that in the past before this week, Dylan?
No, I actually, I have a running joke about how every few years we have some new study that says that there's some correlation between something and autism. And I'm very well aware that it's a part of the consistent desire to find a cause in what is most likely a multifaceted process of creating an autistic person that probably deeply has to do with genetics. So yes, have I thought about it? Have I seen this research? Yeah, it's been out since 2016. It's been pretty well studied. Was anything the president said convincing? Absolutely not.
In studio here, let me ask Corey and Courtney to share a little bit of their own story. And I have to say, Corey has been posting and writing about some of your own experience, and very poignantly so, and got the attention of a number of our colleagues who were really moved about some of what you had to say. So I want to give you both some space to talk about your own story.
I think I'm going to let my wife talk first, and she was the one who was pregnant.
We have a 6-year-old named Mason who is on the spectrum. Mace was diagnosed right when he turned 3 years old at the Kirsch Center here in Rochester with a brilliant doctor who spent a lot of time with him to go through the evaluation. We asked her right off the bat what caused this, and she said, we don't know. And you will hear studies, and you will see research, and there will be no clear answer. So I am a mother of 3 children. I have 3 boys. They are all 2 years apart. Mason was the only child I didn't take Tylenol with. I took Tylenol with the other 2, the 4-year-old and the 1-year-old, and neither of them are experiencing any symptoms of an autism diagnosis. The 1-year-old's still a little bit young, but the 4-year-old certainly isn't. And I just think if, claims are being made that this is the underlying cause, did I inhale somebody walking by who might have just taken
secondhand Tylenol?
Just taken a pain reliever. So for us, that it doesn't add up, that it's not accurate in our personal experience. And then we get to, and I'm sure you'll touch on this soon, but that there's a cure for it. And for us, we don't want our child cured because we don't feel like anything's wrong with him. We actually feel like he's kind of brilliant. We feel like to fix him would be to ruin who he is. He's not broken. He is a beautiful, curious, smart little boy who lights up rooms. And I think that as a parent, a parent neurotypical on the spectrum, any parent out there, you want the best for your child. You want them to be the best versions of themselves, and you want them to do a little good in this world. And our kid does that every single day, as young as 6 years old, as young as 1-year-old, I think. Corey, I'll let you talk a little bit more about him.
Yeah, I think it's really important to point out, because I think this is what we should be focusing more on than grasping at straws of what caused this. What can we do to help, right? And I think we are very blessed and lucky that we were able to find out early, again, just when he turned 3, and then get him into the supports and services that have set him up for success for the past 3 years. I mean, the growth that we've seen has been unbelievable. And we credit that so much to the teachers and aides at Happiness House, where he went in Canandaigua for 2 years. And then now in the Canandaigua school system, he's in 1st grade now. And I mean, it's been incredible for us to watch. And I think that is really what the focus needs to be. How can we amplify and double down and triple down on early intervention and the support services that these children can get so that they're set up for success?
How do you feel about the notion of a cure and the idea that must be the main focus here?
It's in my opinion fundamentally wrong, because it's inherently saying that there's something that is broken that needs to be fixed. If there's a parent listening who say they have a child who can't walk, they're in a wheelchair, and someone came and they said, "Hey, I have this magic pill I can give you, but the child that their personality is going to change if they take that pill." Ask yourself that question: are you going to have them take that? That's kind of what this quote unquote cure they're touting is. They're kind of putting out there, right? And we don't want to do that because, as my wife said, our little boy isn't broken. He doesn't need to be fixed.
To go back to, and I'm not a doctor by any means, but everything I've read, and you find out your kid's on the spectrum and you immerse yourself in this stuff. And, over and over I read, this is not a disease. You cure diseases. You don't cure who someone just is. You don't cure something they are just born with. And are there opportunities and are there resources out there to improve certain areas he may be struggling in or she may be struggling in? Absolutely.
But that's every kid too.
Right. Are there different ways of learning? Absolutely. I think every single person in this room, every single person listening, learns a little bit different. That's the beauty of humanity, right? We're all a little bit different. And instead of trying to fix something that isn't broken, maybe we start celebrating and working together and educating and advocating for different ways to help these people grow, learn, adapt in the way that's best for them and in the way that their brain works and can understand and accept that. For us, Corey talked a little bit about the school our son went to, we attribute so much to that, along with his speech therapist and his occupational therapists and his aides. And
we're sending our 4-year-old there, who's neurotypical.
Yeah, he's neurotypical, but we want him around neurodiverse. We want him around all kinds of people because that's what he's going to interact with. And we don't want anything to faze him as he continues to grow and just understands that people are people and love them for their differences. And if there are things that are similar to you, great. And if there are things that are different than you, we hope you learn from them. I remember that day of the diagnosis, and I immediately go into like, okay, let's accept this and move on, and what's next mode. And I never cried. We never cried. We never like got upset. And I know that happens for some people because it's emotional when somebody tells you there might be something off about your child. What we did instead was started reading and started reaching out to parents who have been in our shoes before. And that was the biggest help. And, I think, there are organizations locally, Autism Up is one of them, where they are open arms to parents like us. And they have programs and they have therapies and they have resources that anywhere your child is on a spectrum, and it's a big spectrum, they're able to help and guide and teach you as a parent how to adapt and change your behavior, and also how to help your child do the same for themselves. I remember just being in a new parent, finding out shoes of this little boy, and I'm like, okay, where do we start? And I didn't want to reach out. I wasn't ready to share this with anybody beyond our family because I didn't know enough. The first thing I did was I joined their Facebook group, and I searched other Facebook groups nationally, and I didn't participate, but I did observe, and I read the comments, and all of a sudden it made me feel like we're not alone.
There's community there.
We're not different. Yeah. We're not that different. There's a lot of people actually in our shoes. There's a lot of people in our son's shoes. And it's all just a matter of learning and educating ourselves and educating those around us and moving forward and celebrating all the great things and addressing any challenges like you would with any child.
I think what that did is it dissolved the stigma, because can we just put it out there that there's quite a stigma that shouldn't be there?
Yeah, I think that's a powerful way to look at it. And just on the medical side of things, if people are hearing about a possible cure from this administration, Dr. Sun, anything you want to add there? Based on what we have heard this week, Dr. Sun, about a possible cure from this administration, what do you want people to know?
Right now, there is no evidence that there is any known cure to autism, there is plenty of research going on, but there is no known cure for autism. Autism is something that we should embrace and take care of the people who are diagnosed with autism and get them early intervention. We know that kids who are diagnosed early and get care early do better later in life.
But do you think this administration is pointing to evidence that is just not evidence, too flimsy?
Correct. It's just not any solid evidence at this point. It's not scientifically sound, and no community at this point in time supports it.
Tamika Robinson, do you want to tell us a little about your own story and your own reaction to what we've been hearing about this week?
So I have a son. He's 10 years old. His name is Chase. He got diagnosed when he was like between 2 and 3. So I did early intervention. It was scary. It was very scary. I was a single parent, and I knew nothing. I never heard of autism. Blinded. All I knew is this kid used to run everywhere, and I barely could chase him. And I'm like, I'm scared. What is going on with him? So I remember just going to the doctor and like, hey, he's very hyper, He don't listen. He don't have awareness of danger. He doesn't know if somebody's like trying to harm him. Like, he does not know anything. Like, this is scary. So then, the doctor was like, maybe we'll just keep an eye on him. That's where it started. So he kind of started school at the age of 2. It was like a lottery. If they pick your number, you could go to school early. So he went to school for early pre-K with the Rochester City School District. So I remember him going to school, and the teacher, you don't want to hear nothing about your kid. Like, it just hurt as a parent, somebody coming to you telling you something about your kid. So I just remember the teacher coming to me saying, hey, I think you should get him looked at. Like, she didn't know how to tell me, whatever it was at the time she was trying to tell me. She was just saying, I think you should go get him evaluated, So every day she would say that, but she was not clear. And I'm a brand new mother, so I didn't know what she was talking about. So then one day I asked her, like, you tell me this all the time. What are you talking about? And she's like, I just saw kids who act like this, and, I refer them to get help and, seek other attention, from special doctors. Still, she not being clear to me, right? So then I just think she didn't know how to tell me, I used to be stressing, because he used to be all over the place. I can smile now because we rocking and rolling now. You know what I'm saying? But back then it wasn't a laughing matter. Like it was a lot. So what ended up happening was she explained to me, I said, the doctor want to know things. So the doctor want to know exactly what is he doing in school. So she's like, well, he's in a corner rolling cars and the other kids are like participating in class. He only participate when music's playing or, stuff like that. But when it comes to like actually sitting down, he don't. He doesn't eat our breakfast. He doesn't eat our lunch, So it's like, okay, now I really have a picky eater, So I went back to the doctor and told them what the teacher told me. And they recommend me to go to Kirsch as well. So that's what I end up doing. And I work with Kirsch. I think it took, until about 3 years old, him getting diagnosed. And it was so weird how they had them, how they could diagnose them. Like, it was just like some toys in a bin. And however they played with the toys, like, you could tell whether they were autistic or not. So we left with a packet, right? I tell people all the time, they ask me, how did I get so far with my son? I was scared. I was a scared mother by myself. Nobody knew nothing about autism around me. I was a scared mother. I read that packet. I read the packet because I was so lost. I read the packet and I heard of the front door. I went to the seminar for the front door. I got him a care coordinator, OPWDD services. I did all those things, and we work hand in hand with Autism Up. He goes to classes. He's doing so well now.
How old is he now?
He's 10.
10
He'll
years
be
old.
he'll be 11 in November. But like the other parents were saying, I would not change nothing about my child. I don't want no care. I worked hard to get him to where he at. And he is amazing. He lights up a room. Everybody loves him. He's surrounded by nothing but love. But it's just a struggle, and even today I get inboxes on Facebook or Instagram, or people see me out in public and they're like, hey, I have a friend, or I know somebody and they need help. You and Chase is real established. How did you do that? I don't mind helping. I help because that help wasn't offered to me when I needed it. I know how it was as a single mother to be scared. Mm-hmm. You're scared. Somebody telling you about autism, but you don't know what it is. You never heard of it. Like we was talking earlier, this stuff was hid. This is the most I've ever saw of kids with disabilities, even when I was a child. I'm only 39. You know what I'm saying? But when I was a child, I didn't see a lot of disabled kids. I didn't see that. All of a sudden, this happened. So I just think, like, as far as the Tylenol go, I was a mother that used Tylenol. So when that came a thing, and I want to say I heard about it within the past, like, probably like 2 years.
Okay.
I've heard about it, and it's just like social media. Like, how something pops up. You could be, I don't know, you talk on your phone, anything pops up these days.
Yeah. I do think, Tamika, social media occasionally has stuff that is not correct. I think.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I'm with you. But that's where the autism,
I know it's powerful.
Where the autism and the Tylenol thing, that's where I first saw it.
Did you blame yourself?
No, it just had me questioning. Like, geez, I did take a lot of Tylenol because the doctor told me, like, take Tylenol. That's all you could take. And I was like, my body was in pain.
Yeah.
So I took Tylenol. So at first, when I first saw it.
Connection.
Yeah, if there's a connection.
And again, the evidence right now indicates that there is not. But what is it like hearing the president say to you, well, you should just toughed it out?
I think, like, as a pregnant woman, like, to say that, first of all, we're already vulnerable. We're going through a lot. And then to sit there and say that we have to, like, just kind of, like, thug it out, that's a lot. Because you in a lot of pain. And then for him to say there is no alternative. There is no alternative. So if we can't take Tylenol, then what are we taking? Then what are we to do? I feel like at that point, now we're going to have, because pain starts your blood pressure raised and everything else. So now you starting to have those issues and those complications.
That's right.
So I just I don't know what he was thinking when he said that. He said a lot of things that just pops out, but I just think that it's hard on a pregnant woman, a mother, during that time.
I'm glad that your 10-year-old is doing well.
Oh, yeah, he's doing awesome.
And I want to ask Dr. Sun if she wants to just add a little bit, that last point about it's not trivial to say, tough it out. There's nothing you can use. What do you want to make sure you emphasize for listeners to understand about what options you have if you're pregnant?
Pregnant patients are toughing it out already on the daily. So take Tylenol, take acetaminophen when you need it, please. And talk to your provider about it. If you want to have that discussion, talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to other people who have experienced, talk to families who have kids with autism, know what that actually is like before making your own decision.
Absolutely.
Not taking it, just like you said, can cause worsening conditions, right? And so fevers can cause true harm. Real pain can cause true harm to people. There are no other medications right now that we can help to prevent pain in pregnancy, really, that are safe. Ibuprofen, not safe in pregnancy, right? We're not going to be promoting narcotics for people who are pregnant, correct?
Right.
So we are left with acetaminophen, which is still and will continue to be safe for pregnant patients until otherwise we know.
Let me also ask Dylan Dailor to weigh in on some of what you've heard. You heard Tamika Robinson say her 10-year-old is beautiful, doing great. She doesn't want to change him. You heard Courtney and Corey say, they don't think of their child as broken. Dylan, is there anything in you as a self-advocate that you would want to cure, to use that phrase that the White House has used?
No, I think that there are a lot of things that, much like other people, I do want to change about myself, but I think that is less to do with the autism and more to do with just being a human being. But whenever I see an autistic child, I recognize the inherent worth of their life and the inherent worth that they have as a human being and the contributions that they can make to society. And I just don't see a reason why we should be trying to alter that. And, it worries me when you hear the president, and it's something we didn't touch on in his second statement. He says, we want to see that number go down to maybe 0. And this is not to get too political, but, I love politics. This is a presidency and a president who is more worried about, the perception of success over actual results. And it really leads you to question things like, what do you mean by get it down to 0? Are we talking about taking away people's diagnoses? Are we talking about taking away early intervention services that help make these diagnoses so that you can claim that we have gotten to 0? And the harm that would cause the autistic community is worse than anything that he has done so far. And what he's done so far is already, quite impressive for the U.S. government to be causing harm to our community. So I think that the statements like that kind of leave me on the edge of my seat as to how they might go about doing this.
Corey, you want to add to that?
I'm kind of troubled overall with the tone that the administration's taken overall. I look back to April when RFK Jr. made a couple of statements, and I'm going to read those right now. Autism destroys families, and more importantly, it destroys our greatest resource, which is our children. Children with autism will never pay taxes. They'll never hold a job. They'll never play baseball. They'll never write a poem. They'll never go on a date. Many of them will never use the toilet unassisted.
That's not true.
That is not true at all, and we know that in this room.
Absolutely.
But that is the narrative that is being spread to the nation. And there are sadly going to be many people that are going to see that and believe it. And that, I think, is the most troubling thing for me.
That is very troubling. I never heard that. But that did something to me just now.
It should, because that's vile stuff.
Honestly, I look at my son, sometimes I feel like he's smarter than me.
We do that every
day.
day.
He comes up with now he's learning how to manipulate situations, and I'm looking at him like, did you just manipulate me? Listen, them children are beautiful. When I say beautiful, they live the life that we supposed to live. They're not worried about anything. They just as happy and smiling. They have their routine. Long as their routine is not interrupted, you don't have to. I tell people all the time, you do not even have to yell at them. You could just talk to them like they're me or you. And guess what? They're going to be A-okay. Those kids could never go on a date. Them kids going, yes, they can.
There's literally a show on Netflix about it.
Yes, they can. Look, don't count mine.
It's called Love on the Spectrum.
Love on the Spectrum. Can I
There's
just...
plenty of neurodivergent people across all professional situations. So to say that they could never have a job.
some of the most successful. Some of the greatest minds in the history of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's what we're going to do. I want to ask one more question to Dylan on this subject. And then after our only break, Paul, I'll take your phone call. Listeners, if you've got more phone calls, I've got a lot of emails. We're going to get through as much feedback as we can as we talk about the White House's guidance on Tylenol, which is contradicted by the medical community writ large, and its comments on autism. Dylan, when you talk about the desire to score political wins, to be able to say, well, the rate of autism was 1 in whatever, but now it's only 1 in 1,000, would to you look like a Pyrrhic victory, a fake victory, manipulating data. I have to say, when you brought that up, Dylan, it reminded me that a few weeks ago on this program, we played sound of the president lamenting the fact that as you look at the crime rate, he's frustrated that as he sends federal troops to Washington, talks about Chicago, people have pointed out that politically red states have higher crime rates. And his response was, well, he's getting hurt by that because they count it when a husband strikes his wife at home as a crime. That a little fight at home becomes a crime instead of just a private matter. And he viewed that it was personally offensive to him as the president because his crime stats weren't going down. So I have to say that there is a little bit of precedent, Dylan, this idea to have the data look good for you.
Yeah. We saw the same. He had the same comments about. That one is obviously one of the most horrible. But he did the same thing with labor statistics. He fired the director of who was counting labor statistics because they were not giving him the results that he wanted.
The jobs reports. Yeah.
Thankfully, the man is transparent. It's just that he knows that his supporters will not care, and he knows that the people who don't support him will criticize him for it, and his supporters will not care. And that's what has me worried, is in this time of intense political polarization, when we used to be able to have bipartisan agreement on issues like autism and like increasing services for autistic children and autistic adults, autism is now in the realm of politics, and that is a bad thing.
I think that's well said. After we take this only break, your feedback as we're talking about a wide range of issues related to that White House guidance. We'll come right back on Connections. This is Connections. I'm Evan Dawson, and this is Paul in Brighton first on the phone. Hey, Paul, go ahead.
Hello, Evan. I've been sitting here listening, and I think it's going to be best if I don't make the comment that I was originally going to make about our commander-in-chief. It'll probably be best to keep you guys on the air. If I don't,
the FCC is listening, man. Come on.
Yeah, and the
listening extra
to listen to these folks, and they're just knowing my brother-in-law is in California, is autistic, and he was born in 1955, and that was a pretty difficult time for my wife's family when you talk about services and what was available during that period of time, and the fact that he's been able to maintain a job and live semi-independently with a lot of help from the state of California when it finally became available. And just to listen to these folks' amazing stories and these amazing people and compare them to a person that doesn't have a sympathetic bone in his body for anybody or anything that people go through. As I say, it would be best for me to stop right now and just thank you for giving everybody a forum, because apparently we don't have a Dr. Fauci anymore who would at least would try to counteract some of the bilge and the swill that's coming out of Washington right now. So as I say, with that, I'm going to stop now because it's just going to get worse. And you guys all have a wonderful day and take care.
Well, thank you very much for the phone call, Paul. I appreciate that. And Dr. Sun, your colleagues across the country, I mean, I don't know that I've seen anybody in your field who has stood up to say, endorsing what they've heard, either from RFK or the president in the last few days on this. Have I missed anybody, or is it pretty unified?
It's very unified. You know, our own Department of Health came out with just a statement yesterday. So, you know, again, reaffirming that acetaminophen does not lead to increased risk of autism in our kiddos. So, again, there's no sound evidence that this is a thing.
Jay in Kendall writes in to say, my understanding is that acetaminophen is in scores of other products. Is that right, Dr. Sun?
It can be, yes.
So Jay's asking, why in the world would Trump and his, this is his email, and his minions be focusing this only on Tylenol, not all the other products containing that word that he can't even pronounce? That's from Jay.
It might be more complicated. Maybe he can't say the word very well, but it's easy to focus on the one brand that we all know of and that we connect with. So that's my assumption at this point.
Okay, but where else do we find acetaminophen?
Is it in Sudafed? I took some today, actually, and I saw it on the box. I was like, huh.
It can be in a number of different medications. And usually sometimes it can be, like, for example, I believe Midol has a little bit, or, you know, different kind of medications may have it. Combination are kids' cold medications when it's like made in combination like yours was, can have it as well. But again, follow the instructions.
Let me read from Aria, who says, I'm currently pregnant. My pregnancy is considered an elder pregnancy of 35 years old and above. And my OBGYN recommends baby aspirin to prevent and aid with preeclampsia.
Yeah.
I would be more concerned about the harms of preeclampsia than my baby potentially having autism due to acetaminophen. Also, I have a fair amount of friends that are autistic on various ends of the spectrum, and they are some of my most treasured friendships. That's from Aria. What do you think, Dr. Sun?
Yeah, I 100% agree with her. And, you know, preeclampsia is definitely, it's prevalent in our community. It's prevalent in the nation. And I'm always worried about preeclampsia for our patients. And so, yes, I agree. I am more worried about preeclampsia in most circumstances than I am worried about any possible harm taking acetaminophen can do for our patients.
And let me also just let me address an email that came in that has a long story, a very interesting story that I had not heard, but it was essentially making the point about how societies evolve and how biology evolves, making the point that diversity within species is good, diversity of experience, and the homogenization, the effort to, quote, scrub out autism or eliminate any diversity is, number one, probably not going to be successful. And number two, would not be beneficial to a species that benefits from diversity in a lot of different ways. Now, I want to ask all of our guests about that. Medically, what do you make of that point, Doctor?
Well, I think diversity is what makes everything have more potential in life. There is more potential when there is people from different backgrounds, different lived experiences. There is just so much more potential, and that is partly what makes our country great. Really, what it came from is the diversity that we have. And diversity in terms of medical, if we're talking about scientific, diversity is what can cause new things to occur, new random mutations that can make our life different and wonderful.
Yeah. So Lisa, thank you for that email. So Tamika, you want to add to that here? I mean, the difference in all of us is kind of what makes life wonderful anyway, isn't it?
Absolutely. I love that our country is diverse.
Get close to that microphone. Thank you.
I love that our country is diverse. Diversity is needed. I feel like if it was a bunch of people like me, life would be boring.
Well, I actually think
I don't
if it
think
was
so.
just like you,
think
it
it'd
would
be
actually never be boring. And by the way, if you're watching on YouTube, I just want to say I love the puzzle pieces. Don't judge what you don't understand is the phrase that you're wearing with a bunch of beautiful puzzle pieces. You look great today. I love that.
Thank you so much.
I love that. So I don't think if it was all Tamika's, it would probably be very interesting. But the larger point stands there. Courtney, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about this idea that people are afraid of diversity or afraid of what they don't understand?
Well, I think people are always going to be afraid of what they don't understand, but I think that's where the educating yourself and learning from others and hearing stories like Tamika's story and our story and a whole plethora, because again, the spectrum is a huge spectrum, is really what's going to help people hopefully understand what this is and this way of life. And when they see kids or people out in the community, they'll be able to maybe be a little bit more empathetic as to meltdown or a lot of energy running all around when you're supposed to be waiting in line. Like the way for Corey and I, the way our child's brain works, this is a 3-year-old who taught himself Spanish. And he started coming home, and we thought he was learning it at preschool. And his preschool teacher messaged us and said, "Are you guys teaching him Spanish at home?" I'm like, "We don't know Spanish." So it got to
I took 5 years in high school.
Yeah.
All right, come on.
See.
That counts.
So it got to a point where we would have to have him say these statements into Google Translate for us because he's yelling to us, and we're like, "We don't know what you're saying." And he's saying full-blown sentences solely because he was sitting next to a bilingual child at school, and he picked up and memorized everything that kid was saying. So our family, you know how RFK Jr. said, autism, quote unquote, ruins families. Our entire family now refers to the Green Front restaurant in Canandaigua as Verde Front. And when Mason wants to go out and get pizza and great wings, we go to Verde Front.
Verde.
And you know, when he asks for the Rosa and Blanco pajamas, we know those are his red and white Christmas jammies. So, you know, this is a child who's teaching us Spanish. And I mean, we learn, that's a small example, but like we learn random things all day, every day because of this kid that I never would have known. And he shares that joy. And again, I think it comes back to diversity. Like if we're not celebrating that and we're not asking him to share that with other people, we're not spreading that joy, that education, that love, that person, that curiosity that he brings to our lives with everybody else. And I'm sure, Tamika, you feel the same way about Chase.
Yeah, like Chase right now he hates going to the doctor, right? So I can't say, "Oh, I got a bump on my arm." He's going to come and say, "Do you have a fever? Like, are you coughing? Do you have diarrhea?" Like this, he's going down. He's going down the line.
You don't need WebMD.
He's a doctor.
Yeah, he's going down the line like he's a doctor. But this is because he does not like going to doctor. So now he YouTubes everything. But that's his thing right now is doctor stuff. He's right in my back seat, and I can hear him YouTubing. Like I'm like, is that a doctor talking in the back? And sure enough, it is, because that's what he's doing now. You're absolutely right. Like, your son doing Spanish, that's amazing. These children are amazing. They are amazing. And I just wish more people just learn instead of, like, running away, because I feel like right now, we go to a park, instead of Chase saying, "Hey, do you want to play tag?" He'll go tap him. And then if somebody hit you, you're going to chase them. So that's the reaction he wants, right? So I constantly have to, at the park, "Hey, he's not hitting you. He just want to play tag." And then I go to Chase and say, "Hey, if you want to play tag, just say, 'Hey, do you want to play tag?'" So, they have a way of doing things, but it's all love. That's really all it is.
Let me ask Corey and Dylan if they want to. Anything you want to add here, Corey?
I mean, you talk about embracing differences, right? And I'm going to take back like the 30,000 square foot or the 30,000 foot view here of, I think that's what's wrong in general with the country, is that it's one of the most divisive times ever. And that's because we're not embracing the differences of each other. We're not having conversations like this. We're on our computers and we're sending mean Facebook messages to people. And I think that is why we are where we are right now, very sadly.
Yeah.
Dylan, anything you want to add there?
Yeah, I'll flip it a little. I'll just say I appreciate my neurotypical friends. I do have them. And I would never want to see them gone. So, I appreciate the diversity in my life of having both autistic and non-autistic people. And I think that it makes my life better. I don't see why somebody would not want to have that experience. But Yeah.
I think that's a fair way to flip it. You're always making us think of things in different ways there, Dylan. That's why we got you on the program today. Hey, let me squeeze in a couple more emails here, and I think we've got Joel in Rochester on the phone. Got to keep it tight. Go ahead, Joel. Oh, that was user error.
Yeah,
Joel, start again. That was host user error.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead,
Hi,
sir.
thanks for taking my call. So I guess I wondered about, there's been discussion from former CDC heads about RFK's comments about autism kind of ringing the specter of eugenics. And Trump's comments earlier this week also kind of seem like they're heading in that direction. Let's completely eliminate autism by not taking Tylenol. It might be a meeker or less kind of offensive comment than RFK's, but I think the specter of eugenics still holds true. So that's one. I'd love to get some feedback about that. And two, this drug's been around since the 19th century, actually 7 years before Trump's grandfather even appeared in the United States. This drug's been around and used for fevers and for colds. So, love to kind of put that into perspective. And then lastly, I wonder, how the fact that Facebook and now YouTube and Google are not going to be tracking content or, trying to combat disinformation as much, how that's going to play a role in the fact that the Trump administration is putting out this kind of, concerns about Tylenol. So anyway, I know this time's tight, but thank you for
Jill,
the show.
Thank you for all three of those points. The last point, I'm just going to say this. Tomorrow on this program, we're talking with attorneys about speech law. And I will say that in general, my disposition is to counter speech with speech. Speech that you don't like, speech that you think is wrong, with more speech. I think anytime that we try to use instruments, especially of government, to stamp out speech, it tends to lead us to where we were with Jimmy Kimmel getting record ratings going back on the air last night, even though you couldn't see it in Rochester. Thank you, Sinclair. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow. I don't know that I want Facebook or YouTube to put too much of a thumb on it, although if they've got people who can monitor misinformation, but I think that's a bit of a slippery slope. I know that's not the government doing it. There's a big difference between the FCC, when Brendan Carr, when the Vice President of the United States or anybody else is doing it. So, but I take that point, Joel. It's going to be hard because the president is beloved and listened to by millions of people, and he's telling people don't take Tylenol. Tylenol stock is really struggling all of a sudden. I mean, this is real. So it's going to be a lot of effort, but I think more, speech with speech, counter speech with speech, and that's a good place to start. That's why we're here today. I also want to squeeze in an email that came from Zach. Where was that one? Zach essentially wanted to know, how come you haven't mentioned vaccines this hour? Here's why. We are talking vaccines probably next week on this program, but it's not just about autism. There's been a lot of new guidance on vaccines generally in this administration, and we will have some of Dr. Sun's colleagues coming. You're busy enough. We're not going to have you come in twice in a week. But your colleagues are going to be joining us next week to talk about vaccine guidance, what you ought to know, and that's in regards to claims about autism, generally claims that are misinformation, but also, the president said that babies get 80 vaccines and it's enough for a horse. And no, that's also not true, right?
Not
Doctor?
true.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So if you heard that, that's also not true. So we're going to talk about all of that stuff next week. And I appreciate the question, Zach. So it's been a lot of ground to cover. So let me just start with this here. We reached out to kind of Corey when I saw your post at first here. So I'm going to give you 30 seconds. What do you want to leave with listeners as we continue to hear about this stuff in this and what feels like kind of a really ugly discourse right now?
Yeah, again, I think it goes back to embracing those differences. It goes back to, for parents that have children with that diagnosis of autism, that early intervention, get it as soon as you can, and then explore as many services as you can. There's a lot of great things out there. There's a lot of different organizations as well. Autism Up, like Courtney mentioned earlier in the episode. So take advantage of that and community. Connect with those people. Right? It made us feel less alone, and I think that's going to help a lot of parents that have a child with that diagnosis.
Final thoughts from you? You got to keep it tight.
Yeah, I'm a mom with a kid on the spectrum, and I have gone to 2 different practices across my pregnancies, had 9 different doctors within those practices who I got to visit with all of them, and also 2 midwives, and every single one gave me the same advice, and it was that Tylenol is safe for your pregnancy. I'm a firm believer in the medical profession. Any mom or soon-to-be mom who's pregnant right now, I would highly recommend you follow what your doctor says. They're trained in this. They go to school for years and years and years to become experts in the female body, in babies, and the best of luck to you.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. Dr. Sun said essentially the same thing earlier. You're not going to find any of her colleagues saying otherwise. So, Dylan, 20 seconds. Is what's going on this week making it harder for people like you, people who have autism, or is this par for the course for you?
It's getting really par for the course at this point. I think we're all relatively used to it. It doesn't make us feel any better. But I think a good thing to remember is that autism has been around. Autism will always be around. I would tell you if the rates start to drop, that is a manipulation of the data and it's just harming us. So keep on pushing along.
Thanks for making time for us, Dylan. Always appreciate you.
Thank you.
Corey and Courtney, best of luck to you.
Thank you
for sharing
Thank
your
you.
family's thoughts here. We're going to meet Chase one day. We're playing tag in the park. We're going to bump into Tamika. And I'm going to look forward to that day. Thanks for sharing your story.
No problem.
Thanks for being here.
having me.
And Doctor, on short notice, thank you for adding your expertise to this program. And from all of us at Connections, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We are back with you tomorrow on member-supported public media.
This program is a production of WXXI Public Radio. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of this station, its staff, management, or underwriters. The broadcast is meant for the private use of our audience. Any rebroadcast or use in another medium without expressed written consent of WXXI is strictly prohibited. Connections with Evan Dawson is available as a podcast. Just click on the Connections link at WXXInews.org.